My boyfriend hates that I'm a vampire. He threatened to break up with me unless I remove my fangs. While I was hesitating because I needed them to feed, the comments started popping up. Baby, go find his roommate. He'll totally let you bite him. So, while my boyfriend was sleeping, I had a feast. OMG, our girl is finally taking charge. The roommate must be loving this. Look how red his face is. If she just looked down for 1 second, he'd be totally busted. Just as I leaned close to his ear to test him, my boyfriend walked through the door. Jake, have you seen my girlfriend? Once again starving, I went to find Jake Wilson. He was celebrating his classmate's birthday, the same girl who claimed she'd compete fairly with me. For him, when she saw me arrive, Jake thoughtfully pulled out a chair for her. First, then gave me a slight smile. Changed her mind. A month ago, he threatened to break up with me, forcing me to remove my feeding fangs. His reason, he thought they looked ugly, disgusting, like some lower creature. But when we first got together, he used to say my little fangs were cute. I sadly shook my head. I'm hungry. The hunger in my eyes pleased him. He smirked and casually handed me a bowl of duck blood from the table. Raw duck. Blood, fishy and slimy. Eat up, thinking about the month of duck blood and pig blood I'd been forced to consume. My stomach churned with disgust. Puri. Biological revulsion. I frowned and quietly begged, could I please not eat this? I've been starving for too long. These things weren't working for me anymore. I needed fresh, warm supply. He knew this better than anyone, Jake said. Softly, sure. Before I could feel relieved, he suddenly leaned closer, using a voice only I could hear. His tone nasty. Beg me. I should have felt angry, but I was too hungry. I could only lower my head, feeling miserable, and mumble, please. Jake suddenly laughed. When he looked at me, there was condescending contempt. Emma, aren't you pathetic? Of course, he never intended to give me a single drop of blood. Whenever I didn't obey completely, he'd use this trick to torture me, just as hunger was driving me to continue begging him. Suddenly a comment popped. That stupid male lead, I want to slap him. Just one sip of blood, and he's acting all high and mighty. If our vampire baby wasn't so law-abiding, you'd be meeting your maker by now. I blinked in confusion. Just when I thought I was hallucinating from hunger, another comment appeared. Baby, go find Jake. He'll totally let you drink anywhere you want. You could drain him dry. He's suddenly an enticing sweet scent drifted over. Life-saving food. I stared straight at the source. It was Jake Wilson, my boyfriend's roommate. No one noticed the wound on Jake's palm, except me, a scent even sweeter than my boyfriend's blood. I secretly swallowed. My boyfriend saw me swallow pathetic quickly and was certain I'd give in and submit. So he left me standing there and casually sat back down. Someone quietly asked, what's going on? My boyfriend looked at me and delivered his ultimatum. We've already broken up. Jake suddenly looked up. His classmate Sophie suddenly pretended to be shocked, raising her voice. Oh, so you came here to beg for him back. But since Jake already rejected you, don't you think constantly pestering him is embarrassing? When girls act so shameless, guys lose all respect for. My mind was completely focused on the sweet food source. I couldn't hear what she was saying at all. The handsome food source suddenly chuckled softly. Everyone's attention shifted to him. He looked at Sophie and asked calmly, when you were chasing after someone with a girlfriend, how come you didn't think that was embarrassing? Sophie wasn't embarrassed at all. Instead, acting proud. I'm bravely pursuing love. She's just being clingy. How is that the same? Jake clapped his hands and laughed mockingly. First time I've heard someone describe being a homewrecker so elegantly. When it comes to being shameless, who could compete with you? Sophie's face immediately turned red with anger, but she could only sputter. You. Seeing Sophie's eyes red with grievance, my boyfriend frowned and defended her, but it was just a weak comment. Jake, talking to girls like that is classless. Jake didn't give my boyfriend any face, kicking his chair back as he stood up. This is disgusting. I have things to do, so I won't stick around. My boyfriend was intimidated by Jake's family background and didn't dare get angry. Just sat there with a dark expression. Jake left first. I followed right behind him. The next second, comments exploded. And he calls this chasing his wife back. Just going straight to permanent single status. 1 slap for the homewrecker. 2 for the scumbag. The roommate is Such a tease, deliberately opening his wound. Look how his smile reaches his ears when he sees the girl following him. Baby sneaking around is so cute. Auntie has blood. Auntie will let you drink. I was skeptical about the comments. Besides, my boyfriend had said he didn't mind me being a vampire at first. So I decided to secretly follow and wait for the right moment. Just as I was thinking about how to medicine him, I crashed straight into a human wall. Was my stalking discovered? Caught off guard, a warm body fell into my arms. Jake leaned close to my ear, holding up his injured palm, his face showing genuine distress. I get dizzy at the sight of blood. Can you help me with this? The rich sweetness made my fangs emerge. I quickly covered my mouth with both hands, meeting his pleading expression. I licked my fangs and nodded frantically. Close your eyes first. It might feel better that way. Jake closed his eyes tightly, extremely grateful. Thank you so much. He had a vulnerable, submissive quality, his long eyelashes trembling slightly, hungry and craving. I only dared to scrape his palm with my fingertip and lick the tiny bit of blood. What an actor. You didn't even blink when you cut your palm with that knife just now. Jay, if you're going to tempt her, put some real effort into it. Do you think our baby will fall for this? Just one touch on his palm, and his ears are red. My heart breaks for you. Baby, you're so good. Secretly licking. Once, then again thinking no one noticed, then once more. You're killing me with cuteness. Vampires good, humans bad. Seeing this, I grew bolder. I quickly lowered my head and licked once. Jake suddenly shuddered as if in pain. I thought I'd been discovered. I stared at Jake nervously. Did I hurt you? Jake made an unclear sound of agreement. Hurt. He's obviously loving it. Baby is too innocent. After treating his wound, I stared at Jake expect. Apparently, this little bed of blood wasn't nearly enough for someone in my prolonged state of starvation. Instead, it just made me crave more. Besides, his blood had a sweetness I'd never tasted before. Under my gaze, Jake visibly blushed. He quickly looked away and cleared his throat. It's getting late. Should I walk you back to your dorm? My face showed obvious dissatisfaction as I moved closer to him. But I want to come back to your dorm. Jake's Adam's apple bobbed, his eyes mysteriously darkening. His voice became husky. Are you sure? Yes. How else would I get the chance to medicine him and have a proper meal? Once the door closed, Jake's gazes on me became impossible to ignore. As he approached me, I was frantically thinking about how to get rid of him so I could make my move. Then he suddenly seemed to remember something, stammering, I'll go take a shower first. Perfect opportunity. I quickly urged him. Go. Jake grabbed the hem of his t-shirt with one hand. His movements were lean and efficient. It looked a bit staged. His physique was genuinely pleasing to the eye. Before entering the bathroom, he glanced at me once. There was even a hint of regret in his eyes. Hearing the water start, I immediately sprang into action. I put sleeping pills in his water glass, same ones I used when hunger kept me awake. He was taking quite a long shower by the time he came out. I was worried the dosage wasn't enough, so I crushed another pill and secretly sprinkled it in his glass. When I handed him the water, his expression was strange. He glanced into the glass. I held my breath nervously. Just when I thought he discovered something, he drank it all in one gulp. Soon the medication took effect, and Jake fell into a deep sleep. I carefully observed. For a while, I leaned close to his ear to test. Jake, are you asleep? Confirming he was out cold, I cautiously moved closer, looking at his pale neck and the blood vessels beneath his skin. I was instantly ravenous. Feeding from here would give the best taste. My boyfriend had never let me try this, only letting me bite his finger. I leaned down, gently sniffing with my nose tip for this hard-won delicacy. My movements were gentle and slow. Fresh blood instantly eliminated the weakness and fatigue from my prolonged starvation. It even gave me an unfamiliar, thrilling pleasure. So much so that after feeding, I reluctantly took a few more licks before for the wound healed. When I looked up, the comments went crazy. OMG, our girl finally took charge. The roommate must be in heaven right now. His face is completely red. Not just his face, he probably needs to change his pants too. If our girl had just looked down once, he would have been totally busted. The funniest part is Jake paired himself in the bathroom, then came out to find the girl administer medicine him. He thought she wanted to sleep with him, but in her eyes, he's just walking food. OMG, when? She just licked his palm, he was already shaking. Now with all this licking and biting, he must be going crazy, huh? I keenly caught the key point from all those censored comments. Jake was pretending to sleep. I stared at his flushed cheeks, then thoughtfully glanced down. Yep, totally busted. Just as I leaned close to Jake's ear to call him out, the dorm door creaked open. My boyfriend's annoyed voice came through. Jake, have you seen my girlfriend? Her roommate said she didn't come back. When he saw me emerging from the bed, his words stopped abruptly. My ex-boyfriend stood paralyzed in the doorway, his hand still gripping the brass handle. His eyes darted from my flushed face to the rumpled sheets of Jake's bed, and then to Jake himself, who was currently lying flat on his back, his chest rising and falling in a slow, deliberate rhythm. For a split second, panic seized me. The ingrained fear of his temper, cultivated over months of emotional starvation and cruel ultimatums, flared in my chest. I instinctively wiped my mouth, terrified. A stray drop of Jake's impossibly sweet blood might betray me, but before my ex could even open his mouth to shout, the comments exploded in my vision. Here it comes. The scumbag is malfunctioning. LMAO, look at Jake. He's pretending to be asleep again, but his hand is literally gripping the bed sheets like he's ready to murder. Jake's heart rate right now. Baby, don't be scared. You have a premium blood bag backing you up. Now, the text scrolling across my vision grounded me. The fresh, warm blood coursing through my veins. Jake's blood was doing something incredible. The chronic lethargy that had plagued me for months was entirely gone. My senses were razor sharp. I could hear the erratic, angry something of my ex's heart, and beneath me, the steady, powerful rhythm of Jake's. Emma, my ex finally choked out, his face contorting into an ugly mix of betrayal and rage. What the hell are you doing in his bed? He took a step forward, his fists clenching. You shameless. We break up for 2 hours and you're already throwing yourself at my roommate? I opened my mouth to speak, but suddenly, a large, warm hand wrapped firmly around my wrist. Jake sat up. There was no grogginess in his eyes, no trace of the heavy sleeping pills I had ground into his water. His dark gaze was terrifyingly lucid, sharp as a blade, as it locked onto my ex. He didn't let go of my wrist. Instead, his thumb gently stroked my pulse point, a silent, grounding gesture that sent a shiver down my spine. First of all, Jake said, his voice a low, lethal drawl that echoed in the small room. Knock before you open my door. Second of all, lower your voice. You're giving me a headache. My ex scoffed, his face turning a mottled red. Are you kidding me, Jake? She's my girlfriend and she's in your bed. Are you trying to steal my sloppy seconds? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jake's grip on my wrist tightened just a fraction. Not enough to hurt, but enough to pull me slightly behind him. He swung his legs over the edge of the bed, his tall frame suddenly dominating the space. Sloppy seconds? Jake repeated softly, too softly. He stood up, closing the distance between them in 2 long strides. Let's get something straight. You dumped her in front of a dozen people to stroke your own ego while flirting with Sophie. You don't get to claim ownership over someone you treated like garbage. Get him, Jake. Bro is radiating dark energy right now. I'm taking notes. The ex is literally trembling. Pathetic. My ex took a subconscious step back, intimidated by Jake's sheer physical presence and the quiet menace radiating from him. But his wounded pride wouldn't let him retreat entirely. He looked past Jake, glaring at me. You're unbelievable, Emma, he sneered, though his voice lacked its usual bite. You think Jake actually wants you? You're a freak, a leech. When he finds out what you really are, what you eat. I know what she is, Jake interrupted, his voice dropping to a near whisper. My breath hitched. I stared at Jake's broad back, my heart pounding. My ex blinked, momentarily thrown off. You know. She's I know, Jake said evenly, stepping forward until he was chest to chest with my ex, forcing the other boy back into the hallway. And I don't care. What I do care about is you. Breathing my air. Pack your things. Tomorrow, I'm requesting a room transfer for you. If you ever speak to her like that again, or if you ever try to force her to drink that vile slaughterhouse trash, I will personally ruin your family's little logistics company. Do we understand each other? My ex's face drained of color. He knew Jake wasn't bluffing. The Wilson family had enough. Money and influence to wipe his entire bloodline off the social map. He opened his mouth, closed it, and finally shot me one last look of venomous hatred before turning and storming down the hall. Jake calmly reached out, grabbed the door handle, and clicked it shut. He locked it. The heavy clack of the deadbolt sliding into place made me jump. Suddenly, it was just the two of us again. The adrenaline of the confrontation faded, leaving behind a suffocating, thick tension. He locked the door. I repeat, the wolf has locked the door. Baby girl, run. Actually, no. Stay. This is about to be good. Look at his neck. The bite mark is completely gone. Vampires really do have healing saliva. But look at his eyes. He's starving more than she was. I swallowed hard, my newfound confidence wavering. As Jake turned to face me, he leaned his back against the wooden door, crossing his arms over his chest. His eyes swept over me, taking in my messy hair, my flushed cheeks, and lingering on my lips. So, Jake said, his voice losing its icy edge, replaced by a husky warmth that made my toes curl. 2 sleeping pills, really? Did you think I was a rhinoceros? My face burned. You were awake. I was awake when you crushed them. I was awake when you poured them into the water. And I was definitely awake when you climbed into my bed, he confessed shamelessly. He pushed off the door and slowly walked back toward me. Why did you drink it? Then, I whispered, backing up until the back of my knees hit the edge of the mattress. Jake stopped inches away from me. He reached out, his knuckles gently brushing against my cheek. Because you looked so desperate, Emma. And because I've been waiting for you to look at me like that since the day you started dating that idiot. I stared at him, wide-eyed. You bit my fangs. You felt them. I did, he murmured, his gaze dropping to my mouth. He tilted his head, exposing the side of his neck, where I had fed. The skin was flawless, healed by my saliva, but a faint, rosy flush remained. It felt amazing. You didn't hurt me at all. In fact, you stopped way too soon. Screaming, crying, throwing up. He said, you stopped way too soon. I am deceased. He's been plotting this for months. A true mastermind. I felt utterly disarmed. For months I had been conditioned to view my nature as something grotesque, something to be hidden away and starved. I had been made to beg for a bowl of coagulated, foul-smelling duck blood, made to feel like a monster. And yet here was Jake Wilson offering his throat to me like it was a privilege. Your blood, I stammered, trying to process it all. It's different. It cured my fatigue. Instantly, I have O-negative blood, a rare subtype, he said softly, stepping even closer, so I had to tilt my head up to look at him. It's highly sought after, but it's yours exclusively. Jake, I can't just use you as a food source, I protested weakly, even though the mere proximity to him was making my newly emerged fangs ache with temptation. Who said anything about just being a food source? Jake smiled, a genuine, breathtaking smile that reached his eyes. I'm offering a trade. I keep you fed, perfectly healthy, and never let you touch that disgusting raw meat ever again. In exchange, I echoed. He leaned down, his lips brushing against my ear. In exchange, you let me take care of you. You move out of your dorm and into my apartment. Off campus, you let me protect you, and you never look at him again. It wasn't a request, it was a devotion, wrapped in a possessive demand. Accept the easiest contract in history. She hit the jackpot. From abusive trash to a billionaire Yandra. Blood bag. I didn't need the comments to tell me what to do. The warmth radiating from him, the absolute certainty in his eyes. It was everything I had been starving for, and not just biologically. Okay, you brute. Jake's eyes darkened with raw triumph. He didn't hesitate. He framed my face with both hands and kissed me. It wasn't gentle, it was hungry, desperate, a release of months of pent-up frustration. I gasped, and as my lips parted, my fangs inadvertently grazed his tongue. He groaned into the kiss, pulling me flush against his chest, entirely unafraid of the predator in his arms. The next week was a blur of chaotic, beautiful upheaval. True to his word, Jake had my ex transferred out of the dorm by noon the next day. By the afternoon, Jake had packed up my miserable, cramped dorm room and moved me into his luxury penthouse off campus. The space was massive, featuring floor-to-ceiling windows with UV blocking glass, a detail Jake casually mentioned he had installed just in case. My wardrobe was suddenly filled with expensive, soft fabrics, but the most staggering change was my diet. I never had to beg again. Jake established a routine. Every evening he would sit on the velvet couch, pull me into his lap, and simply tilt his head to the side. He never flinched. He only stroked my hair, his heartbeat steadying me as I drank. With his premium blood, my true vampire abilities, which had been suppressed by malnutrition, surged to the surface. I was faster than a blurring camera. I could hear a pin drop 3 floors down, and my reflection in the mirror changed. My skin glowed, my eyes grew brighter, and the sickly pallor of starvation vanished, replaced by a vibrant, ethereal beauty. But peace is rarely permanent, especially when bruised male egos are involved. My ex, now relegated to a dingy dorm room across campus and completely humiliated, was stewing in a toxic cocktail of vengeance and jealousy. He couldn't accept that the girl he had treated like a dog had upgraded to someone light years out of his league. It started with whispers. I was walking across the campus quad with Jake's hand firmly wrapped around mine. When I noticed the stairs, students were whispering, pointing, pulling out their phones. My enhanced hearing easily picked up their conversations. Did you see the post? Is it true she drank a whole bowl of raw blood at the party? I heard she has some weird psychological disease. She thinks she's a vampire. No way. Ethan posted a video. He said she bites people. I froze. Jake felt my hesitation and immediately stopped, his eyes scanning the crowd with a lethal sharpness. What is it? The scumbag posted on the campus forum. He wrote this whole sob story about how he had to endure your sick fantasies and how he tried to cure you, but you attacked his roommate instead. He and Sophie are trying to ruin her reputation. I want to rip his head off. I quickly pulled out my phone and opened the university's Anonymous Gossip Forum. There it was. A massive post titled The Truth About Emma, Why I Had to Leave Her. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. He painted himself as a tortured, caring boyfriend, trying to manage his mentally ill girlfriend who had a freakish blood fetish. He claimed I forced him to buy me animal blood, and that when he finally refused for my own good, I went crazy and seduced Jake Wilson because Jake was gullible enough to play along. He even included a blurry photo from weeks ago. A photo of me looking miserable and pale, holding a plastic container of pig's blood that he had forced me to hold. My hands shook. The sheer audacity, the twisting of reality made my chest tight. Emma, look at me, Jake commanded, softly taking the phone from my hand. He glanced at the screen, his jaw ticking. Once before, he casually locked the phone and slipped it into his pocket. Do not panic. He's trying to expose me, I whispered. If people start digging, if they realize I'm not just role-playing, they won't realize anything, Jake said calmly, because a liar's word holds no weight when he's exposed as a fraud. What are you going to do? Jake smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It was the smile of a predator, far colder than any vampire I had ever met. I'm going to teach him that actions have consequences. Go to class. Let me handle this. Oh, Jake is in his villain era. We love to see it. R.I.P. to the ex. He flew too close to the sun. Please, Jake, destroy him. No mercy. I went to my classes, though I could feel the weight of everyone's stares. Sophie, the girl who had claimed to compete fairly for my ex, was in my afternoon seminar. She strutted in, looking immensely pleased with herself, and made sure to sit loudly right next to me. You know, Emma, she stage whispered so the whole row could hear. It's really sad. You could get professional help. My uncle is a psychiatrist. He deals with delusions. I slowly turned my head to look at her. My new strength thrummed under my skin. I didn't need to cower anymore. I leaned in, my eyes flashing a dangerous crimson. For just a fraction of a second. Too fast for a human to register as anything but a trick of the light. You should worry about your own delusions, Sophie, I whispered, letting my voice resonate with a subtle, hypnotic compulsion. Like the delusion that he actually cares about you. Sophie blinked, suddenly looking dizzy. She paled, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water before she abruptly grabbed her bag and moved to the back of the room, shivering. Yes, Queen, use those powers. Put her in her place. She literally just glanced at her, and Sophie folded. By the time the seminar ended, the campus was in an uproar, but it wasn't about me anymore. When I stepped out of the building, my phone was blowing up. The comments were scrolling so fast I could barely read them. Jake. Drop the nukes. Holy crap, Jake. Hacked the forum. He posted everything. The audio recordings, the bank statements, the text messages. I opened the campus forum. The top post was no longer my ex's sob story. It was a pinned, locked thread titled The Reality of a Parasite. Jake hadn't just offended me. He had utterly dismantled my ex. The post contained audio clips from a hidden camera Jake had apparently installed in their dorm room weeks ago. The audio was crystal clear. It was my ex bragging to another guy about how he enjoyed forcing me to act submissive, how he loved threatening to break up with me just to watch me beg, and how he was using Sophie to make me jealous so I wouldn't realize he was spending my scholarship money on his gaming habits. There were screenshots of his DMs with Sophie, revealing that they had been hooking up long before he ever threatened me with the ultimatum and the killing blow, a formal letter from the university ethics board attached at the bottom. Jake had submitted evidence of my ex plagiarizing his entire midterm thesis. I stood on the steps of the lecture hall, stunned. Suddenly, a commotion caught my eye. Across the courtyard, my ex was storming toward me, looking completely unhinged. His hair was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. People were actively stepping out of his way, pointing and laughing at him. The facade of the handsome, caring boyfriend was entirely shattered. You bitch, he screamed, pointing a trembling finger at me. You did this. You and that rich prick. You ruined my life. He lunged forward, reaching into his jacket. For a terrifying second, I thought he had a weapon. He pulled out a large, heavy glass bottle filled with a dark, sludgy red liquid. Let's show them what you really are, he roared. Let's see them defend you when you're slurping pig's blood off the concrete. He threw the bottle directly at me. Time seemed to slow down. I could see the trajectory of the glass, the dark liquid, sloshing inside. A month ago, I would have cowered, cried, and let it cover me. But I wasn't that starving, pathetic girl anymore. With reflexes that blurred human comprehension, I stepped to the side, caught the heavy glass bottle by the neck midair, and spun on my heel. In one fluid motion, I hurled it right back. The bottle shattered against the brick pillar right next to his head. The thick, foul-smelling pig's blood exploded outward, drenching him from head to toe. The courtyard fell dead. Silent. My ex stood there, dripping in the horrific, rotting stench of the slaughterhouse blood he had tormented me with. He looked like a nightmare. He wiped his eyes, sputtering completely, shell-shocked by the speed and precision of my movement. I don't eat garbage anymore, I said clearly, my voice carrying across the silent courtyard. Oh my god, Chinema, have you looted? Chinema, the way she caught it. Black Widow could never. Look at him. He looks like a dirty tampon. You freak, he shrieked, wiping the blood from his mouth, looking around frantically for support. Did you see that? She's not normal. She's a monster. The only monster here is you. The crowd parted instantly as Jake walked through. He wasn't rushing. He moved with a relaxed, terrifying grace of an apex predator, closing in on a trapped rat. He didn't even look at the dripping, pathetic mess of my ex. His eyes were entirely on me, checking for any injuries. Finding none, Jake finally turned his attention to the boy, shivering in a puddle of pig's blood. I warned you, Jake said softly. It wasn't a shout. It was a promise. I told you it would happen if you ever came near her again. You set me up, my ex cried, his bravado entirely gone, replaced by a whining panic as campus security guards finally pushed through the crowd. She's a vampire. I swear to God. Look at her eyes. He's clearly having a psychotic break, Jake said casually to the head of security, slipping his hands into his pockets. He vandalized campus property, attempted to assault my girlfriend with biological waste, and he's been harassing students online. I believe his academic suspension is already being processed by the dean. We'll take it from here, Mr. Wilson. The security guard nodded respectfully. They grabbed my ex by the arms. He thrashed, slipping in the blood, screaming obscenities, screaming about fangs and monsters, but to everyone else he just sounded like a deranged, bitter ex-boyfriend who had completely lost his mind. I watched him get dragged away. The knot of anxiety that had lived in my chest for the past year finally unraveled, dissolving into nothingness. Jake turned to me, pulling a pristine white handkerchief from his pocket. He gently wiped a microscopic speck of dirt from my cheek. Are you okay? He murmured, oblivious to the hundreds of students watching us. I am. I smiled, looking up into his dark eyes. I really am. Good. Jake wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me tight against his side. Let's go home. You need to eat. Yes. Take your queen home. The scumbag is gone forever. Clean sweep. Wait, you need to eat in broad daylight? Jake, you hussy. That evening, the penthouse was quiet. The city lights of the skyline twinkled through the massive windows, casting a warm, golden glow over the living room. I sat on the edge of the kitchen island, swinging my legs. Jake stood between my knees, leaning in, as I carefully cleaned the twin puncture wounds on his collarbone with a damp cloth I had just fed, and the euphoric, heavy warmth of his blood made me feel delightfully tipsy. You're spoiling me, I murmured, pressing a soft kiss to the healing marks. I'm going to get fat. Jake chuckled, a low rumble in his chest that vibrated against my legs. He rested, his hands on my hips, pulling me flush against him. Vampires don't get fat. Besides, I have plenty to spare. You went totally overboard today, I pointed out, tracing the line of his jaw. Hacking the school forum, buying out the team. He threw a glass bottle at you. Jake's eyes darkened instantly, the protective Yandra slipping back to the surface. If there weren't witnesses, I would have done a lot worse than get him expelled. I handled the bottle just fine, I reminded him playfully. I know. His expression softened into pure adoration. You were incredible today. When you threw it back, God, Emma, you have no idea what that did to me. Oh, I raised an eyebrow, leaning my forehead against his. What did it do? It made me realize, Jake whispered, sliding his hands up my back to tangle in my hair, that I don't just want to be your blood supply. I want to be yours completely, for as long as you live, which, considering what you are, is going to be a very, very long time. I looked into his eyes. There was no hesitation, no fear, only an all-consuming, obsessive devotion that I knew deep down matched my own. My ex had seen me as a freak to be controlled. Jake saw me as a goddess to be worshipped. A very long time, I agreed, softly letting my fangs slip down, grazing his lower lip. Are you sure you can handle that, Jake? He didn't answer with words. He kissed me fierce and deep, his hands gripping my waist as he lifted me off the counter and carried me toward the bedroom. As the bedroom door clicked shut behind us, the final comment scrolled across my vision, glowing faintly in the dark before fading away for good. And they lived happily ever after. The best ending. The absolute best ending. Okay, guys, logging off. They need some privacy. Privacy? With him? He's probably going to let her bite him again in 5 minutes. Goodbye, baby. Enjoy your eternal feast. I smiled against Jake's lips, closing my eyes. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't hungry anymore. I was finally perfectly full.